World Water Day is coming up. On the 22nd March every year since 1993, the world observes the importance of fresh water. This day is used to advocate for the sustainable management of fresh water resources. For 2022, the theme of World Water Day is Groundwater, making the invisible visible. Today we are joined by Cromwell Williams, hydrologist and acting water engineer at the Water Services Department. He is here to give us more insight on the local observance of World Water Day. Good morning, Mr. Williams, and welcome to Good Morning, SKN.
Hi, good morning.
Morning, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure indeed to have you, sir.
Yes.
So educate us for a second. I imagine that the public would understand what groundwater is, but from your experience as a hydrogeologist, groundwater, simply put, what is it? Why is it so important?
Okay, in St. Kitts, as in many other areas, our water basically comes from rainfall. So when rain falls, a part of that rain is evaporated back into the atmosphere because we live on a hot tropical island. But a portion of that rainfall also soaks into the ground and goes deep down into the ground, and that becomes water or groundwater. And of course, that is also a source of our potable water supply. The water that comes through your tap comes from what we call groundwater. In St. Kitts, about more than 2/3 of our water supply comes from groundwater through the drilling of wells. So we have about almost 30 wells spread across the island through which we are able to extract that water from beneath the ground. That water that originally came from the rain, that soaked into the ground, we're able through wells to extract that water via pumps and pump it to your homes.
That's an invisible process that we take for granted.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So can you help us to visualize the importance of this type of water?
Okay, so, well, we all know the importance of water, whether it is in our homes, whether it is in the businesses, whether it is for agriculture, tourism, whatever. Water is so essential and basic to our existence. We tend, however, to take it for granted. I think that I myself, before I began working at the Water Services Department, I was literally blind and ignorant as to where my water supply comes from. So it is definitely an eye-opening experience once you get into this field. And so we want the public, the users of water, to not be totally blind or ignorant as to where the water comes from, because it is not up to only us to manage the sustainability of the water. Every consumer, the way in which you use the water at the end of the day is equally important to what we do at the Water Department. So I would say it's a 50-50 responsibility as to ensuring that our water supply is sustained. We have the responsibility to source the water, drill the wells, pump the water, send it to your homes. You, the public, have the other 50% of the responsibility. What happens when that water passes through the meter and enters into your home? If you have leaking faucets, whether it's toilet or whatever, or you just don't pay attention, you're doing things in the home, you're brushing your teeth, you use at the kitchen sink, the water is just running and you're not thinking of it while it's running, then you are wasting the water. You're making our job more difficult in terms of, it means that we have to run the pumps for longer period, and everything with water is interconnected.
That's interesting that you would say that, because I suspect that we take it for granted. It might seem strange to say, but it leads to my next question anyway. we take water sources for granted because we live on an island, we're surrounded by so much of it. But our water doesn't come from the sea. There are no desalination plants or anything like that on the island, are there?
Right, so there's private desalination plants.
There are.
Yes, the Marriott uses one, as well as Park Hyatt.
Okay.
Those are two of the main that I'm aware of on St. Kitts. But in terms of the government public supply, we don't have any desalination as yet.
So there are plants.
Inevitably, we will, as we continue to expand and develop, we will inevitably have to turn to desalination to augment or to supplement our traditional sources, which currently are only from surface springs and from groundwater wells.
We continue to speak on climate change. It's a topic of the century, I would say. So has climate change affected our groundwater greatly? Would you say?
Well, probably not so much at the moment. When it comes to climate change and the potential impact on our water supplies, it is more a projection that will happen in the coming decades. But we can't wait until then. We have to start now to plan as to how we must adapt for the inevitable change in the climate that will happen. So it is clear that one of the impacts or one of the changes that we expect in the climate will be the rise in temperature and accompanying rise in sea level. And most literature would say that by 2050, there might be maybe about 1 foot increase in sea level. By 2100, there might be another 50, there might be another foot or 2 increase in sea level. This will impact groundwater. It will mean that because on a small island like us, for instance, our fresh water the same groundwater, beneath that groundwater now is brackish water or seawater. And if we don't be careful how we extract the fresh water, we run the risk of pulling in that brackish water into our wells. So that is the risk of if sea level were to rise, it will impact the amount of water that we will be able to get from our wells.
So, Mr. Williams, in talking all about water, I think this is something that is very real to all of us, because I've experienced, and I'm sure a lot of our local viewers have experienced this as well. You go to the tap at 10 p.m. and there's no water coming out of your tap. And I suspect that this is one of the ways that the department seeks to manage the supply of water. Is there anything that man does per se that you can point to, other than what you've said before, of course, that leads to more problems for you in terms of managing that supply?
Sure. Water, the basis of water management is supply and demand. We, the water utility, we supply the water, and the users control to a large extent how much water we are required to supply. Now, there are basic needs that users have, but there are also some ways in which users use water that is not absolutely necessary. And one of the biggest problems we have in St. Kitts, believe it or not, is leaks. Leaks, there are some on our side in terms of the distribution system, but there are also far too many also on the customer side. And we've always had the problem over the years. Customers get a bill and the meter shows that they would have used sometimes maybe 60,000 gallons of water in 1 month. And they would this is crazy. It's impossible. But it's not impossible. Often the culprit is, say, a leaking toilet. And simply because toilets are man-made, and over time, sometimes the flap in the toilet that closes off, shuts off. When you flush that toilet,
Just keeps running.
might not close. And so you've walked away, flushed the toilet and you walked away, but the toilet keeps running. You've gone to work all day, the toilet is still running. You're sleeping all night, the toilet is running. And so at the end of the month, the meter shows us that, you have used that significant amount of water. And that is a major, major problem for us. And so we need customers in St. Kitts to start being more conscious, to pay attention to their meter, to their bills, and don't just ignore it when you get a high reading, because, it simply means that there is something that went wrong and needs to be adjusted. We still get a lot of pushback from customers. Many of them feel that, no, your meter was faulty, but 99% of the times, it's not anything to do with the meter being faulty. It's just the meter is a very reliable instrument that has been improved over the years. And so, very seldomly would a meter over-record consumption. So we need customers to start paying attention as to how they utilize the water.
Are there any events being hosted to commemorate World Water Day here in St. Kitts?
Yes. So as you indicated, next week, Tuesday, the 22nd of March, we'll be celebrating World Water Day. And on that day, we will have an open day. So we will have on display at our office at Needsmas various parts of our distribution system and so on, how you can come and you can get a good idea as to how things are set up, because 90% of our infrastructure is on the ground, out of sight. And so we will have it above ground for that day, so you can come and see exactly, that is how the water is moved, along the system. And we will also have, of course, customer appreciation. So we will have some treats and so on for customers when they come in to view the display or to pay their bills. We have our usual church service on Sunday. We'll have the address by the Honorable Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister Richards, on the Saturday evening on ZIZ. And we will have other activities engaging the primary schools in a competition. And we also have activities between St. Kitts and the Nevis Water Departments. We'll be going over and they will be coming over. So we'll also have a close relationship between the two departments.
Great collaboration. So you heard it here. There is a lot of stuff going on to commemorate World Water Day. Mr. Williams, thank you so much for stopping by and shedding light on something that doesn't get a lot of light because you work on the ground.
Yes, that's true.